Good morning. I hope you have had a wonderful week. Today our lesson is going to be about Philip, the apostle, and he's just a little bit different from the other disciples. He's very low key. He was a fisherman from Bethsaida, just like Peter, but Philip is down to earth and he's even tempered. He doesn't have the high temper that Peter has. So Philip also was the one that introduced Jesus to Bartholomew. Remember us studying him? Okay. He and Bartholomew were really big buddies. Wherever you saw one, you saw the other. And in the list of the disciples in the Gospels, you'll see Bartholomew's name listed first, and then Philip always follows him. So they were big buddies. Last time we studied about 9 Simons, or we studied Simon, and there were 9 Simons, to be confused with our Simon the Apostle. And today we have 4 Philips. There was a Philip the evangelist that was a lot of times that was confused with Simon the apostle because they both were preachers. So Apostle Philip is mentioned 9 times, actually 7 in the Gospels, and 1 time in Acts. And today I'm going to include John as some of the gospel, because you remember in the others sometimes John would not mention some of the apostles, but today I'm most impressed because he mentioned Philip 4 times in the writing of John today. So in the one that he mentions the most is the story about the miracle of Jesus feeding the 5,000 and plus the women and the children. Now, I could have made me a sign that says we're important too. But so we know that we got more than 5,000 people. Now, that's a little bit hard to imagine to me. So I tried to think of a place that might hold more than 5,000, because we know that's what they had. And I thought of the Colosseum. The Colosseum can seat over 10,000 people. So can you imagine walking into the Colosseum and seeing all of that people and thinking, ooh, I am going to have to feed these people. What am I going to do? Well, he turns to Philip and he says to Philip, Philip, where can we find enough bread to feed this many people? Well, Philip must have been a keeper. He must have been in charge of the supplies, first of all, of the supplies and the food, for Jesus to have asked him that question. Then it makes me think, did you ever have a teacher that gave you a pop quiz and you didn't know it was coming? Well, I kind of think maybe that might have been how Philip felt whenever Jesus asked him that question. So he says to him, teacher or master, whatever he called Jesus, he said, if we bought 200 denarii worth of bread, we still could not feed this many people. Now, for you to understand that, you got to know what denarii is. Well, you know, we use dollars and cents today, and you've heard people mention euros and pesos that they use in Mexico. And 200 denarii would be about as much, roughly, a day's wages. So if he bought 200 denarii of bread, that be a lot of bread. We'd have like 200 days of wages to get that much food, and it still wouldn't be enough. So, now Jesus, he knew the answer already. All he'd have to do, it would be raise his hands, and he'd say, let there be bread, let there be drink, let there be fish, and it would happen. So you see, this he knew was going to happen because he was going to be sure that this miracle happened of feeding these people. So that's how that came about. So that's why they think that Philip was in charge of the supplies and the money and the food. Now, Philip, to leave you with one little last fact about Philip, Philip was known as the first missionary sent out of Jerusalem. Now, when Philip was preaching and doing miracles also, because he had been commissioned to do that by Jesus, he had to suffer a lot of persecution in Jerusalem. So he left and went to Samaria. Now, remember, they didn't have cars, they didn't have bicycles, they had the sandals on their feet, and they had to walk to Samaria. Well, Samaria is about 57 kilometers from Jerusalem. Now, my math is not really good when you get to that kind of measurement. So I had to look it up and convert it. So let's say it was about 35 miles to Samaria. But when he got there, he was well received, and he started performing miracles and doing his preaching, and word got back. So Jesus sent out Peter and John to go down to Samaria to see if everything was okay, and if what they was hearing was really true. So they got down to Samaria, and sure enough, he was doing a great job. So he continued to do his work, and when they carried the message back, excuse me, they found out that sure enough, he was doing the correct way that Jesus had taught him. Now, let's look at the banner that we have. We have two symbols on this banner. We have the cross, and we have 2 loaves of bread. Well, you can already guess what this bread symbolizes. It symbolizes the feeding of the multitude. The cross symbolizes his method of martyrdom and how he was put to death. He was crucified on the cross. So, if you will, join with me in the Mizpah benediction today. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent, one from the other. Amen. You have a good week.